Hi everyone, and it's Kate here for my September wrap-up. So just looking back, I wrote down all of the books that I had read, and I really didn't feel like I had read that much, but it adds up to 9 books. So I guess I finished one and read 8, but anyhow, I don't have any physical copies to hold up either. They were either ebooks or audiobooks. I've been doing, lots of crafting to audiobooks, so that was really a treat during the month just to feel free to do that. And yeah, it was really great. So the first one that I read was excuse me, I do have a cold at the moment, so I might be clearing my throat quite a bit. The first one I read was Among the Mad by Jacqueline Winspear, and this is number 6 in the Maisie Dobbs series. And I enjoyed this the most out of any of the Maisie Dobbs that I've read. And I don't know what I was expecting, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think I listened to it over the course of like 3 days, and I think it's around a 12-hour audiobook. So I did listen to it slightly sped up, but that just shows you like I was willing to dedicate all of my free time to listening to this book. And it was just so much fun. It starts out where one of the like plot devices is something that happened to a character in the previous book, and so I don't want to give any of that away. But there's some repercussions from that Maisie's trying to deal with. And in addition to that, there is someone who is sending anonymous letters to Scotland Yard and threatening to do really terrible, gruesome things to people in London. And it's just kind of a game to him. So this is Maisie kind of putting 2 and 2 together and kind of figuring out who is this crazy person who just wants to wreak havoc on the city. And there's lots of, psychological analysis like there always are in Maisie Dobbs. And I think I was just very much in the mood for it. I love all of their character development with Maisie and her friendships. She has, there are certain recurring characters now, which is really nice to see them. I do still want a romance for Maisie, so I'm hoping maybe, coming up there will be one, because I think she does enjoy her work, but she is lonely. At the end of the day, I think she's fairly lonely, and she lives kind of far away from her father, so it's not like she can see him that often. So we shall see what the next Maisie Dobbs brings. But yes, Among the Mad is so far my favorite in the series. Next, on a much cozier note, was Agatha Raisin and the Wizard of Evesham. This is number 8 in the Agatha Raisin series, and this is just such a great palate cleanser. I feel like it takes the amount of brain power that watching a sitcom does. It's just so wonderful for when I just want something that is just so easy to pay attention to, and I end up just putting it on in like all the odd little moments of free time I have. So it's only around, all the audiobooks are around 5.5 hours. They're very brief, but I usually take around a week to listen to them, just because I just listen to it in the odd snippets, and it's just so easy to pick back up and put it down and pick back up. So yeah, I love these. And this was where there's a very dashing and debonair hairdresser in the neighboring village of Evesham, and he is found dead. And there are many ladies who are kind of, Agatha's putting 2 and 2 together, that he kind of messed around with them and then broke their hearts. And so that has many suspects. So of course there's lots of romantic drama for Agatha as always, and just they don't disappoint. They always, I know when I'm in the mood for an Agatha Raisin, like they're always going to feel the same, They always kind of just check that box of what I was wanting. So I really, really enjoy those. And then I finally finished This Victorian Life by Sarah Chrisman. This is a memoir I mentioned, I think, in my fall reading tag, or finally fall tag, where there is a couple who were just so enamored with the Victorian era that they moved into a Victorian home and got rid of their electric refrigerator, got rid of their, new gas stove. But all those Victorians did start to use gas, but it's not one like we would use today. And it just converted their whole life, and they ride Victorian bikes. And it's just such a delightful little memoir, and I was looking on Goodreads, and there are some salty reviews. Like, people are so mad that anyone would think there's something possibly good about the Victorian era. So I think, obviously, we shouldn't look at past eras with rose-colored glasses. Kind of look at all these wonderful things. There's going to be bad things in every era. There's bad things in this era, but I also don't think, C.S. Lewis calls it chronological snobbery of, look how enlightened we are and so much, we've progressed so much, and we're just so much better than others by having the values, you know, that people have today. We're just so much better than them. So I think some of the people who reviewed that just kind of, they were just very upset that anyone would want to emulate anything from the Victorian era. But I think there's going to be good things from each era and bad things from each era. And the next one that I read was the fourth in the Amory Ames series, and that is The Essence of Malice, and this series is by Ashley Weaver. I first heard about this from Olive over at A Book Olive, and I'm so glad she recommended it. And I also did read, there's a little novella that I thought was so fun that Ashley Weaver released a couple months before The Essence of Malice came out, and it's called Intrigue in Capri. It's around 50 pages, so if you like the series, you will enjoy it. And Milo and Amory, Milo is her husband, and Amory, they are in Capri on vacation, and of course, Amory happens upon a mystery. But then The Essence of Malice is when there is a woman who was Milo's nanny when he was growing up, and her name is Nanette. And she sends him a very mysterious and ambiguous letter just asking him to come to Paris where she lives. And it's just very intriguing. And so Milo and Amory head to Paris. And it's so fun because in this one, The Essence of Malice, it involves a family. There is a really wealthy family who own a very successful perfume company. And the sort of patriarch of the family is murdered. And so, of course, people don't think it's murder at first, and Amory and Milo have to do some sneaky investigating. It was really fun, too, because it was kind of the, like the nouveau riche scene in Paris, and just some, like secret clubs that they go to, and it was just really fun, and definitely tied with me, actually, for the favorite. I think A Most Novel Revenge, which is the third in the series, and then this, The Essence of Malice, are tied for my favorite. So, really enjoying this series, and I hope she keeps releasing one every year. It will just be such a treat every fall if she does. The next one that I read that was a surprise and a spontaneous listen is The Kitchen House by Kathleen Grissom. This was especially fun because it was a cast of people, and The Kitchen House I heard about on Katie at Life Between Words channel, and apparently they talk about it a lot on the Modern Mrs. Darcy podcast, What Should I Read Next? And this takes place in the antebellum South, and it's just all of the slaves and plantation owners at this particular plantation. So it's kind of like Downton Abbey meets Gone with the Wind. And yeah, it was just really, really emotionally moving and gripping, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. And like I said, there were different narrators for different characters. You're hearing it's first person perspective from around 3 or 4 different narrators, and so that was just particularly conducive to audiobook listening. Yeah, it was just so much fun, and I'm so glad that I read it, and it just came at just the right time because I didn't want to commit to anything too huge before Victober, and it was just there wasn't a wait list, and it was really great. The one caveat I will give is I'm not sure how much staying power it has. So as I was reading it, I was like, this is so fun to consume right now. I'm not sure how well it's going to stay with me. But for being what it was really fun. And then another one that I read that was just a really fun treat was the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer, and there's a second author too, and unfortunately I neglected to write down her name. But anyhow, this is about a group of people who an author hears about their little literary society on the island of Guernsey, and she starts writing to them and basically getting their anecdotes and stories and background of what happened during World War II. And it's just really, really moving, and it's really rewarding, and that you get to see the relationships between all the characters and the friendships. And then also it has a lot about books, and so they get together once a month and discuss different books. And so it's so fun to see, you know, all the bookish love that's in this book. So yeah, it's one for book lovers. Again, this is one I'm not sure how much staying power it will have, because it was really fun while I was reading it. I think though also I was just maybe in the mood for Victorian classics, and I just know those really do stay with me so much more than any other books do. Classics in general will stay with me for a long time. So then I did fit into Victorian books over the month, and the first is Salem Chapel by Margaret Oliphant. This is the third in her Carlingford Chronicles series, and I did this as a buddy read with Katie from Books and Things. We were hoping to read both Salem Chapel and The Perpetual Curate before we read Miss Marchbanks this month. We were not able to get to The Perpetual Curate because they were much longer than the other ones. We were imagining around 200 pages, and this one was, I think, around 400 pages. And then The Perpetual Curate is around 500 pages. So we will be saving that for November. But this one was so much fun and such a departure from the previous ones in the Carlingford Chronicles. I'm not sure how much I feel like the Jane Austen comparison is relevant now. It just feels almost more, this felt more like a sensation novel. So I felt very Victorian, but so easy to read and to get into. And this is about Arthur Vincent, and he is the new curate at the Salem Chapel in Carlingford. And it was just such a treat. It was so much fun. It has, you know, the things that I've already come to love about Margaret Oliphant just 3 books in. It has little domestic details. It has really interesting characters that stand out from one another. And the plot was so incredibly dramatic. I just had no idea the level of drama that was going to happen. Arthur Vincent has a sister named Susan, and then a widowed mother, and there's some scandal that could happen in their family. So while he's trying to adjust to being new in Carlingford and kind of getting to know people and befriending different characters, and also, you know, writing sermons for every week, there's this huge scandal that could happen in his family. So he basically has to prevent all of that. So yes, very dramatic. And then also, you know, him spending so much time dealing with this, preventing this scandal, then in turn has the people of Carlingford all in a tizzy over how he's missing Sundays, and you know, does he really care about our town, and just like so much small town drama. And it was just so much fun, and there were some really interesting characters, and one family in particular I just love. Like I said, her little domestic details. He visits a house and it talks about how there's gardenias over the window in the parlor, and then they go into the window and it's this like real shaded sunlight that's in there. And there's a daughter who's been working on a knitting project for years, and nobody knows like what it's going to turn out to be, and just so fun, like so many Victorian novels are. I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4 stars. I was kind of torn between 4 and 5 stars, but there was this very climactic part like 3/4 of the way through, and that felt like totally a good resolution. And then there had to be sort of a quarter more of the book, so it did feel like it dragged a little bit towards the end, unfortunately. But other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read more Margaret Oliphant. I just really think she's going to become a new favorite Victorian author. And then a Victorian classic that unfortunately I did not enjoy as much was Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens. This has now taken the category of my least favorite Dickens, but although it's tied with A Tale of Two Cities. So it was really ironic that I was reading this finishing this as I was reading Salem Chapel, because Nicholas's mother in this really reminded me, and Katie from Books and Things said the same thing, of Arthur Vincent's mother in Salem Chapel. Just really nonsensical and naive, and so naive to be a woman like in her like 40s or 50s and to know so little about the world and so much less than her children do. So that was just kind of grating. And in addition to that, there weren't many well fleshed out characters like there are in some later Dickens. Like, I think it was kind of a come down after Dombey and Son and Bleak House to read Nicholas Nickleby. I think maybe if it had been one of the first ones I read, I would have enjoyed it somewhat more. I think that Newman Noggs is a great side character. He has some really great lines, and he's just very noble. I think the bits that are in the theater when Nicholas is traveling around were really fun. But other than that, just I kind of knew fairly early on, unfortunately, it was not going to be a favorite Dickens. But I'm obviously totally glad that I read it, and the miniseries, The Life and Adventures of Nicholas Nickleby, is still one of my favorite miniseries. So I think maybe his earlier ones that don't have as much character development and are much more caricatured and exaggerated in their plots make really great miniseries. But other than that, I don't know if it's one that I'll be rereading. I don't know, maybe years from now I'll have the urge to read it again. But yes, so I'm happy that I read it because I do want to read all of Dickens' works. And those are the books that I read in September. Please let me know your favorite book that you read in September. And I will see you guys for another video soon. Bye.